ESO is about to release its latest feature called Subclassing, which allows you to combine skill lines from different classes to make the exact build that you want. This is still in testing, but the results are pretty insane and super fun to play, so I had to share them with you in this video. This is going to be a build guide for a Black Knight or Black Paladin style build, combining two of my favorite classes right now, the Templar and the Necromancer. We've got the Templar's great self-healing, along with the Necromancer's dots and burst damage. We're mixing light with dark, holy runes with skeletons and graveyards, and I haven't had this much fun in ESO in a long time. As always, timestamps and a full written guide are going to be provided down below, so make sure to use those if you need to. But that said, let's jump right into the video. Alright everybody, here we are on the public test server, and it's time to check out one of my first builds using subclassing. It's going to be the Dark Knight build. It's a combination of Templar primarily, with a lot of Necromancer skills thrown in. It's going to be great for solo content, even group content with a bit of modifications. So I'm actually going to show you two different versions of this build. One is going to be focused on survivability and healing, and the other one's going to be focused on a little bit more damage. But that said, let's go ahead and jump right into the buff stats here. I think that's basically it. There's some other things, but we'll talk about that. So we're looking at about 33k max magicka to start, 25k max health, almost 19k max stamina. Decent recoveries overall, good weapon and spell damage, crit chance, and resistances. A lot of that will be buffed when we're in combat. And now we are taking the magicka focused approach on this build, although we're mixing a lot of stamina skills in. Primary stat's going to be max magicka. That has to do with our main spammable. So 64 points is what you'll want there in terms of your attributes. We're using the Thief Mundus. We want as much crit chance as possible. For the food on this particular build, actually Bewitched Sugar Skulls is going to be very good. This just gives you a combination of a lot of raw stats, and like I said, we're using both magicka and stamina abilities, so this gives us a good base of attributes to cast from. We have a lot of other passive buffs as well. We'll talk about where those come from in just a minute, either skills or gear sets. In terms of potions, you really can use anything on this build. I'm using tri-stat potions for more difficult content, but if you're soloing, basic world bosses or, basic dungeons, magicka potions is probably going to be totally fine. The nice thing about this build with the way it's set up is we get all of our core buffs from the skills themselves, so that gives you a lot of options in terms of what potions you want to run. Finally, in terms of the race, I do like Khajiit a lot for this build, particularly for solo content. That's because you get recoveries, you get max stats, you get, of course, a lot of critical damage and critical healing. Any of the damage races honestly make a lot of sense for this build, so that could be High Elf, that could even be Dark Elf, Orc, something like that. High Elf and Dark Elf are probably a little bit better because, again, we're scaling up max magicka. That's going to be our primary stat. So I think that covers the basics. Let's go ahead and jump into the gear sets next. Starting with our first 5-piece set here, and I wanted to bring this up first just to let you know that this still is extremely good for classes like the Templar that have a lot of channeled abilities. So this is going to buff, your puncturing sweeps and your execute if you decide to run that. The beam, those are still going to get buffed by Deadly Strike, even though they were changed to direct damage because they are technically channeled attacks, but it is still in a really good place, especially for Templar and Arcanist, classes like that. Since we can also run a lot of dots on both the Templar and the Necromancer, this makes even more sense for this subclassing combination. So we're going to run 5 pieces on this. I believe I'm doing 3 pieces on the body and 2 pieces with jewelry. So I'm running the helmet first of all, and then following that up with the legs and then the boots. So those are my 3 body pieces, max magicka, divines as the trait there, and then 2 pieces of jewelry. So I've got the 2 deadly rings here with the Bloodthirsty. That's going to be important. You don't want to keep those robust. Definitely want Bloodthirsty with the spell damage glyph on both of those. Okay, so that's pretty typical. What else is new? Well, we're running a new set. Again, currently on the PTS, so you'll have access to this as soon as the Solstice update drops. This is called Tideborn Wildstalker, and it is a crafted set from the Solstice zone, and this one's actually really good as well. Gives us a nice combination, particularly for solo play. You've got the weapon and spell damage, critical chance, offensive penetration, and it's going to increase direct damage done to monsters by 12%. Now, since Puncturing Sweep is our main damaging ability, you get the 12% buff, primarily there. And that's going to be a huge difference. That's a big DPS increase on our main spammable attack. So I do like this a lot on the Templar class skills. This is going to be buffing your Radiant Glory Execute as well, as long as that stays direct damage, which it is currently on the PTS. The cool thing about this set too is it is crafted. So, for soloing, if you want a little bit more survivability, you can craft like a heavy armor chest, for example, which is what I have. And then I mixed a lot of weights here. I have light waist, I have light gloves, and then I'm able to craft my weapons to whatever I want. In this case, following that Black Knight theme, I do have sword and shield, and it actually performs really well. It adds to survivability while still dealing pretty solid damage. So you can use, whatever one-handed weapon you want here. Precise, definitely recommended. You could do absorb magic, absorb stamina for your glyph there. And then for our shield, I just went with divines to kind of max out that crit chance. And then max magicka, obviously the extra glyph is going to be nice also for increasing our magicka attributes overall. But yeah, so we've got sword and board, Tideborn set, and then just 3 more pieces on the body. As you can see, I'm not running a full monster set. That's totally fine. I did swap in Slimecraw here. You could run this as either a medium or a light shoulder piece, whatever works best for you. Definitely Divines, max magic there. That'll give you a little bit of extra crit chance. Notice how this is changing for update 46 as well. They nerfed it slightly. I mean, that's like a 0.05 critical chance, percent critical chance that we're losing for that. I'm not sure why they did that, but that's something to keep in mind. But I do recommend a shoulder piece with critical chance, whatever that happens to be here. And then obviously that leaves 1 slot left over for our mythic, which in this case, we're going to be using the very strong Velothi Mage's amulet. This is still amazing, you guys, especially for its classes like the Templar and the Arcanist, which do the majority of their damage with like 1 or 2 abilities, right? Now, what's cool about this is you get the offensive penetration. Again, great for soloing, but especially good is the minor force on top of that, saving you a bar slot. So that's actually huge with subclassing. Since we're mixing and matching skills across classes, we don't have a lot of empty space on the skill bar, so if whatever buffs you can get for free, definitely pick those up. I didn't have room to run Barb Trap on this build at all, so getting it through this mythic is actually huge. And then of course you get the bonus 15% damage done to monsters. Again, it's a huge bonus, particularly on class lines like the Templar, where you're so focused down on 1 or 2 offensive abilities. But yeah, this is great. If you don't have it, definitely consider picking it up. It's awesome for solo. It's awesome for group content. So yeah, that is the setup. Again, 5 pieces Deadly Strike, 3 pieces on the body, 2 on the jewelry. We're using the new Tideborn crafted set for the rest. Slimecraw shoulder with the Velothi Mage's amulet. If you have any questions on the weights and the traits or anything else, make sure to check out that written guide. Again, link will be down in the pinned comment and the description. I'll have some alternate sets available there as well. So if you don't have access to Tideborn when that comes out, for example, other crafted sets you can use, those will be in the written guide also. Oh, and I almost forgot, actually super important in update 46, Maelstrom two-hander on the back bar. Why is this good? Well, obviously, you're going to want an infused trait. You're going to want the weapon and spell damage glyph. That hasn't changed. It's going to give you a lot of raw stats when you proc that. This also gives you more penetration for the perfected version. But this gives you a very nice buff for direct damage attacks, which again, that's going to apply to your Puncturing Sweep or your Radiant Glory. If you decide to run that execute, this is going to buff all that damage. So it is pretty nice. If you're not familiar with this, it does come from Maelstrom Arena. You get the perfected version from Veteran Maelstrom Arena. Definitely recommend you pick this up in a couple different versions. It's looking like it's going to be a very good back bar weapon moving into this update. So definitely recommend that one as well. All right, so that being said, let's jump to the skills next with subclassing. This is where things get super interesting. And I'm going to just go over what I have in the 2 different versions here. So, like I said, 2 versions I want to showcase. One is more defensive with self-healing, and one is going to be more offensive. So for soloing, this turned out to be extremely good. We've got Adric's Spear, got skills like Puncturing Sweep, Radiant Ward for a damage shield, great passives. These have actually been improved in update 46. So you now get things like Minor Berserk, more armor from Balanced Warrior. Like, Adric Spear is one of the best sort of subclassing skill lines in my opinion, so that's going to serve as the base for this build. And then you can run another Templar skill line just kind of based on your focus. So for soloing, I actually found Restoring Light was quite good due to these 2 runes. Based on your morph, you can get, heal over times from both of these. And so what's nice is, obviously you're going to get healing from your, puncturing sweep when you're dealing damage. But when you're not, when you're on your back bar, or if you get knocked down, stunned, or something like that, both of these provide a lot of passive healing. So this is really good for like the defensive version of this build. If you wanted to be more offensive, do more damage, then Dawn's Wrath is actually, going to be better because you have obviously Radiant Glory. You can run an Execute, which is huge damage now. And then you can run multiple dots from Dawn's Wrath as well. So I'll swap that out later and show you. But for the more solo-friendly version of this build, I would definitely go with Restoring Light. And then, of course, we've got the Necro mixed in. Gravelord is another outstanding skill line for subclassing. We're actually running all of these abilities, with the exception of Flame Skull, obviously. And then the passives are very strong as well for this build. So that's kind of the 3 skills that I've chosen for subclassing. Let's go ahead and dive into the skill bar next. Let me show you the placement and how it all works. So I'm going to start with Blighted Blast Bones here. I've got that as a stamina morph because we want just the AoE damage. This thing, when it crits, does huge AoE damage. So I love how this combines with Puncturing Sweep. You got the, constant pressure of Sweep with the burst damage every 3 seconds of Blast Bones. It feels really good, and it's a nice combination. Plus, it's super low cost. You can see 588 stamina is essentially nothing. Even though we're basically a Magicka Templar build or a Magicka Focus build, you can infinitely cast this, and it feels like nothing. Plus, it's not draining your Magicka pool. So you'll see in a lot of the Necromancer abilities, I've chosen stamina morphs for that reason, and that just makes the sustain on this build really, really good. Speaking of other, Necro skills, Mystic Siphon is awesome as well. This is a damage over time, gives us Major Savagery and Prophecy, which is nice. I chose this version for the extra sustain, the extra recovery. You could do the damage version of this one too. That's totally fine as well. Then we're mixing in our really good Ardent Adric Spear, abilities. I really am enjoying Radiant Ward this patch. It's a huge damage shield when you face off against multiple targets. You can see the scaling there, 20% bonus shield for each enemy hit, up to 120%. So against a single target, it's not super impressive, but when you have like waves of adds during a boss fight or something, 3 to 4 additional enemies rush in and attack you, you can get a huge shield. And it also deals damage, magic damage as well, and applies minor main. So yeah, you're getting a ton of value from running Radiant Ward. It's really good. Next up, we got Puncturing Sweep, your bread and butter DPS skill for this build most of the time. It gives you healing back. It does damage in front of you. It's just really good. One of the few non-class skills, we're running Inner Light here just for a bit of extra max Magicka. This is flexible. There's other skills you can run here, which I'll have linked in the written guide. And also when we swap in Dawn's Wrath, we'll probably be removing this. So we can run Radiant Glory here in this place. And then our ultimate, front bar ultimate, Glacial Colossus, going back to Gravelord. This is really good, I think, for soloing. The cost was recently lowered, so it's not bad. Does pretty good damage, and I like that it stuns. It's like the only thing in our kit right now that actually stuns enemies, so it's really good for soloing content where you have ad waves. Just save it for that when you need that extra stun. It's really good. Plus major vulnerability for 17 seconds. That's a really nice debuff. So yeah, that's our front bar. Let's swap to the two-handed back bar. And of course we got Stampede. From the two-handed skill line, you're going to need this to proc that VMA. The Maelstrom two-hander. That also is going to proc our back bar glyph, giving us all the extra weapon and spell damage. So yeah, it's really good. And it's another one of those stamina skills, right? So we're kind of spreading out equal number of Magicka and stamina skills. Next up, Unnerving Boneyard. We're going back to the Gravelord here. This again is nice for soloing because Templar, you don't have this. You don't have any form of major breach. And you can get it here on the Necromancer, which is super nice. So that's causing all your enemies to take increased damage, plus minor vulnerability means even more damage. So yeah, definitely loving that as a back bar skill. And then even better, Skeletal Archer. What's great about Skeletal Archer is you normally cannot get major brutality and sorcery on a Magicka Templar. That's really an essential damage buff, and so you can get this by running Archer or the Mage version. Again, I prefer Archer because I'm using Magicka abilities a lot, and so I want some stamina skills thrown in. So yeah, really good skill here. And then like I said, our 2 defensive buffs come from Restoring Light on this version of the build. Extended Ritual is huge. It gives you huge healing ticks every 2 seconds. And then Channeled Focus, this is a smaller area, but it is going to give you Magicka sustain and armor all the time, whether you're in the area or not. And then obviously standing in the rune, if you can do that as much as possible, you're going to get 200% bonus healing. Finally, our back bar ultimate, this is really just for passive, so we're not going to use this most of the time. So primarily we're using that to get Piercing Spear, 12% critical damage at all times, even when we're on the back bar. So yeah, that is the setup. I'm going to go ahead and showcase a quick rotation before we talk about Dawn's Wrath skills being thrown in. So really simple, you're just going to start on the back bar with your buffs. Stay in your runes if you can. Here, Stampede, the Boneyard, and then Skeletal Archer. That's it on the back bar. Now, on the front bar, you're basically going to do Blast Bones and 2 abilities. So the typical rotation will be Blast Bones, 2 sweeps. You can see my Blast Bones is ready again, so we'll do Blast Bones. You can do the Siphon now that you have a corpse and another sweep. Blast Bones, 2 more sweeps, and then Blast Bones and bar swap. So that's sort of the front bar rotation. Let's go ahead and show it all together. So there's our back bar dots and our buff. Blast Bones and 2 sweeps. Blast Bones, a Siphon and sweeps. Blast Bones, 2 sweeps again. Blast Bones and bar swap. Now, usually you can just refresh your the smaller rune, and then the Extended Ritual will just be like every 2 rotations if you're doing it with the correct timing. So let me go ahead and throw everything together again so you can see it. Here you could cast your ultimate too, so siphoning and drop your ultimate if you have it. Blast Bones and 2 sweeps, Blast Bones bar swap. And so I really do like the rotation of having Blast Bones with the sweeps. It just feels like amazingly good on this setup. It's very simple. Timing is pretty easy. You can burn the ult early if you have it. If you're finishing up an enemy like this. And you can just power through with sweeps. Towards the end. That's totally fine on this version. Okay, so I promised I would showcase the other version with Dawn's Wrath. Let me show you what that would look like. Here, we're going to grab Dawn's Wrath, and we're going to swap Restoring Light for that one. Now, and again, I'm on PTS right now, so I can showcase this process for you guys. This will hit live servers in June. So for Dawn's Wrath, we're going to pick up all the passives, which are actually quite good. The passives are one of the best things about Dawn's Wrath, because you get more ultimate, you get a lot more spell damage, and you get cost reduction even of your ultimate. So this is definitely better in terms of damage. In terms of skills also, we get 2 additional dots we can run. So you could run Vampire's Bane or Reflective Light. I'm usually going to choose Vampire's Bane just because it has a very long duration, so it makes your rotation a little bit easier. And then I'm also going to run Solar Barrage, even more damage on the back bar. And then we're going to throw in the Templar Execute, which is ultra powerful. For soloing, probably the Healing Morph for more damage, obviously the Oppression Morph. So that is how I would swap things for Dawn's Wrath. Now, in terms of where you would place those, I would probably get rid of Inner Light. You can put Radiant Glory there. On the back bar, you can see we got rid of our healing runes. So now I can run those 2 dots here. I can put Solar Barrage and Vampire's Bane. Now I do want to highlight something, and I think this is, kind of a problem with subclassing, or at least it's something to think about, is you can see Since I'm not really running a defensive class line anymore, I don't have an armor buff anymore. So your, survivability, especially for solo content, is going to be much lower. Well, that's not a problem for groups. You could even have a tank who's running a group major resolve, and that will easily solve that problem. But if you want to still solo and run, 3 offensive skill lines, basically, that's something you probably want to think about. Actually, there is kind of a solution if you are using scribing. And remember, scribing is coming to the base game as well in another update. But using that first ability, Wield Soul, if you create a damage shield like this, and then we can apply something else here, sustain, or maybe, I'll do sustain. You could also do healing over time. Class Mastery is also really good too. But you can get resolve here for 10 seconds. So I wish it was longer. I wish we could actually craft a real armor skill using scribing, maybe someday. So for that, I could replace Radiant Ward with this new scribed ability, Warding Soul. It won't be quite as good because it doesn't have the same target scaling. But you can see now I can get Major Resolve for 10 seconds whenever I cast that skill. So yeah, I think this maybe is a good alternative, especially if you're using subclassing. So the rotation for this will be, almost the same. You'll have those longer lasting dots now from Dawn's Wrath. Buff on the back bar. Front bar rotation is essentially the same, except for when you get into execute range, obviously. Then you'll stop doing sweeps, and you'll do, Radiant Glory instead. But this does have a lot more Magicka drain, so that's something to keep in mind too. Obviously, you're going to be doing a lot more damage. Not just because of the skills that we're running, but also those passives from Dawn's Wrath, which are really good. And then you'll just, swap to Radiant Glory once you're in execute range. About here, you could swap to it. So something like that would work really well for the Dawn's Wrath version. All right, champion points next. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. These are also in the written guide. So in the Greed Tree, something like Steed's Blessing, Master Gatherer, Gifted Rider, War Mount. Those will be really good for movement speed. In the Blue Tree, Fighting Finesse, Biting Aura, Master at Arms, and Thaumaturge. And then finally in the Red Tree, we recommend Rejuvenation, Fortified, Boundless Vitality, and then definitely Siphoning Spells for a little bit of extra Magicka sustain, especially if you're using the Dawn's Wrath version. So yeah, I'll have that written out in 300, 600, 900, and 1200 champion points if you need to see different versions of that. Again, make sure to check out the written guide. Link is down below. Real quick, we can go through the outfit style if you're curious about this, the Black Knight look that I have going on here. Combination of a lot of different styles, actually. So a lot of it, we have Zivkin, so Zivkin chest, for example. We're mixing in some Trinimac pieces, Trinimac shoulders, Trinimac gauntlets. A few of the Dremora Kinreeve set. This one actually looks pretty good combined in as well. So we've got that, Zivkin legs, Dremora on the boots. For the weapons here on the front bar, we're mixing in Daedric for the one-hander, along with one of my favorites, Grim Harlequin for the shield. That looks really good, in my opinion. And then we actually use that on the back bar. Weapon 2, Grim Harlequin for the back bar weapon. And if you're curious about the skin, just kind of completing the effect here. This is the Soul Shriven skin. And then we're combining that with the personality of the Deadlands Firewalker. Everybody, just a quick note that we are updating our members-only builds now to incorporate subclassing, like the brand new Druid build I released this week for members, which combines powerful fire and lightning magic along with animal companions to fight by your side. I've been having a ton of fun with this one as well, because it truly feels like a brand new class, a fully functioning Druid in ESO. It's epic. The members of our Tier 2 Elite Squad can unlock this build right now, along with dozens of other members-only videos, like our classless Barbarian build, Unkillable Arcanist, and many more. So if you're interested in supporting the channel, it really is the best way to do that because you get a truckload of bonus content, not to mention early access to videos and members-only Discord. But just be sure to select the Elite Squad option if you're interested, as it's the only way to get that new content. And to get started, just click on the Join button down below or the membership link in the description to see our complete library of members-only videos. Huge shout out, as always, to our channel members who make this channel possible. I could not do what I do without you, so thanks again. Thanks to all of you for watching this video. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.